he goes on and says, thus there are 6 main streams of emotions. 2 are primary, kama and ahamkara. So kama is the prime desire, and ahamkara is the sense of I, which makes you think I am this is mine, this is not mine. This is mine and that is yours. That is what ahamkara does. Now you should understand the origin of ahamkara, Swamiji says. How have you become like this? Is this the way you are created by God? If you consider who you are and your deepest nature, you can compare yourself to a wheel. A wheel cannot rotate if it lacks spokes. The spokes allow the wheel to rotate, but the spokes will not rotate if there is no hub. The hub of the wheel is the part that remains still and does not move, though it turns. The entire wheel rotates because of the hub, which does not rotate. That central something which does not itself move somehow allows the entire wheel to move. It creates movement. Such is the case with human beings. There is something called the individual soul, or the center of consciousness, which is not subject to movement, change, destruction, or death. Like the hub of a wheel, it does not move. That central part of us is eternal, but we are not in touch with that center, and so we are constantly afraid and insecure. We become caught up by our emotions. We hardly ever come into contact with that part of our being that is the center of consciousness. From this center of consciousness, consciousness flows on various degrees and grades. That little bit of consciousness that we presently experience is only a dim consciousness. If you place a light inside of many levels of shades or filters, one after another, the light seen outside will be very dim. But if you take away the shades one by one, the light will get brighter as you remove each one. The light is your reality. Capital R, reality. You are like the unmoving hub within the wheel, or the light inside the shades. But you do not identify yourself with the center. Here's the problem. You identify yourself with the spokes, with those lower aspects that move and change. We ought to identify with the center. If we continue, Swamiji says, if we continue the metaphor of the wheel, you need to understand that there are 4 main spokes to your wheel. Now this is where we started by going through the part about the emotions. Now we're talking about these 4 spokes, the 4 functions of mind, which are the driving force that ends up expressing with those 6 streams of emotions. If we continue the metaphor of the wheel, you need to understand that there are 4 main spokes to your wheel. One is manas, which you call mind. You don't really understand anything about what the mind is. Manas is merely one aspect of your thinking process. It raises questions like, shall I do this or not? Whenever you consider something, suddenly a questioning comes in your mind and you wonder, shall I do it or not? Shall I go this way or that? Which is more useful? Shall I sit here or there? Shall I speak to you or not? There is always a doubtful nature to your mind, and that is the result of the faculty of manas. This constant doubt in your mind is sankalpa vikalpa. There is only one power in you that works both within and outside, and this is manas. That's what manas does. It works inside and it goes outside. Manas can work inside. It can also work outside yourself. To do that, it employs the 10 senses. Manas begins to work the moment you wake up. You think, oh, I should have a cup of tea. I should have a cup of tea. So what happens? Your hand moves, you walk to the kitchen, and you start to make tea. But the actions are happening because of the manas, because of the mind. Manas itself, however, is limited and has no power to make decisions. The faculty that decides is buddhi, the faculty of discrimination. Buddhi has 3 aspects. The first is the power to discriminate between things. This is a man and this is a woman, or this is good and this is bad. That's discrimination. The second power is the power to decide, and the third is the power to judge. Thus, the main qualities of buddhi are the powers of discrimination, judgment, and decision. He goes on that there is a third faculty of mind called chitta, the reservoir of knowledge and memory, of merits and demerits. Chitta contains the power of becoming from inside, and also the accumulation of knowledge from outside. It's sometimes I think of as being like the hard drive on a computer. It's the place that everything is stored, is in the chitta. There is also a fourth faculty, ahamkara, which is using that word in a slightly different way than when it's spoken of as a negative emotion, or the sense of I-ness, which we described earlier. Thus, in this wheel of life, there are four main spokes that rotate the wheel. Here's the sadhana part. You should learn to distinguish between them and understand their nature and how they affect you. So all of this was leading in with sort of explanation and definition. And in that simple sentence, he's starting to tell us, so what? What do we need to do with it? You need to learn to distinguish between them in this inner laboratory. The only book to study is the book you yourself are, Swamiji said. This is a very important place of where it starts, to distinguish between them and understand their nature and how they affect you. So I need to distinguish between manas, chitta, ahamkara, and buddhi. This is that, and this is the other. And I need to understand, by self-observation, the nature of each one of those four. And I need to know how each one of them affect this person called me. How do they affect me? What is the nature of each one of them? And how can I distinguish between them? Finally, and even more importantly, there is also the hub, the silent witness, the center of consciousness. And elsewhere, I don't recall where at the moment, but elsewhere Swamiji has pointed out that as we learn to discriminate between those four functions of mind, there's something else that automatically happens. We automatically come to see for ourselves that there's something else going on, which is the hub, which is the center of consciousness. So that becomes something that's not merely defined. It's not merely, here's the definition of Atman, or Jiva, or Jivatman, or Brahma. Not merely a definition. If you want to know what they are, if you want to start the intuitive process of direct experience of knowing that hub called Atman, or self, capital S self, a very important way to do that is to discern between the four of them. See the nature of how each one is functioning and how it affects me. And from doing that, we'll also see more clearly the way in which those streams of emotions come pouring out of those desires that are fulfilled or unfulfilled, that are often lying dormant in that latent part of the mind called chitta. And then they come to life, they stir, turn into kama, active desire. And if we don't get our way, we get one version or another of anger. If we get our way, we end up with something like pride and related emotions. But we're seeing how the process works. And something's arising out of the chitta. Swamiji says, the lower faculties of mind include two troublemakers, manas and ahamkara. Those are the troublemakers. When you want to do something, you worry and doubt and say, shall I do it or not? Thus, your manas disturbs you with doubts and questions. But if you calm down and ask the faculty of buddhi, you'll come to the right judgment. just by, what does he say? Calming down and asking the faculty of buddhi. Internal dialogue. Ask. Literally ask the buddhi. Conscience. Let your conscience be your guide. The teacher within, the guru within. Pose the questions and the answers will come. And you'll come to the right judgment, he says. You all have these two qualities. One way of working with yourself and with these two qualities, manas and ahamkara, manas asking, should I do it or not, and ahamkara, that's about me. One way of working with yourself and with these two qualities is self-counseling, internal dialogue.